Welcome to Cinematic History Stories. Here, history is not a dusty textbook. It is the scream of a starving child in Anatolia while a sultan orders another ton of Bohemian crystal. It is the silent click of a banker's pen in London that conquers more land than any army ever could. It is the moment a proud empire realizes its throne has been quietly repossessed by compound interest. On this channel, we don't just tell you what happened. We put you on the marble terrace of Dolmabahçe as the checks bounce. We stand you beside the last Ottoman treasurer in 1954 as he signs away a century of shame. We make you feel the weight of history, because only when you feel it can you recognize it when it walks into the room wearing a modern suit. If you're tired of dry dates and dead names, if you want to understand how nations really rise and, more importantly, how they actually fall, you're in the right place. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the past isn't behind us. It's just waiting for the next signature on the dotted line. Welcome to Cinematic History Stories. The shimmering facade, mid-19th century Ottoman Empire and the onset of financial desperation. October 6, 1875. Deep within the opulent halls of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, where the air hangs heavy with the scent of incense and aged velvet, Sultan Abdulaziz paces the marble floors under the flickering light of crystal lamps. His silk robes whisper against the intricate mosaics, and outside, the Bosphorus laps at the shores like a restless beast. Advisors huddle in shadowed corners, their faces etched with dread, clutching ledgers stained with red ink. The empire's treasury is a void, echoing with the ghosts of borrowed fortunes. In this moment, as the Sultan's quill hovers over a decree that will shatter illusions of power, you can almost feel the weight of centuries crumbling, not under the thunder of cannons, but the silent crush of debt. This is where the story truly ignites, but to grasp the flames, we must rewind to the empire's deceptive grandeur, 2 decades earlier. Imagine yourself standing on the bustling docks of Istanbul in the summer of 1853, the sun glinting off the minarets of Hagia Sophia like spears of gold. The air is alive with the cries of merchants hawking spices from Arabia, silks from Persia, and coffee from Yemen. Ships from across the Mediterranean crowd the harbor, their sails billowing like the empire's own vast ambitions. The Ottoman Empire, under Sultan Abdulmajid, sprawls across 3 continents, a colossus from the snowy Balkans to the scorching deserts of North Africa, encompassing holy cities like Mecca and Medina, and ruling over millions of diverse subjects: Turks, Arabs, Greeks, Armenians, and more. The Sultan, ensconced in his ancient Topkapi Palace with its labyrinthine gardens and hidden harems, commands the crossroads of the world, where east meets west in a tapestry of trade and intrigue. Yet, beneath this veneer of imperial majesty, the foundations are rotting like damp timber. You can picture the peasants in the Anatolian highlands, bent over arid fields with wooden plows unchanged since medieval times, scratching meager crops from the earth while tax collectors, corrupt local officials known as agas, siphon off half the yield before it ever reaches the capital. The empire's economy is frozen in an agrarian past, reliant on handmade crafts and seasonal harvests, while across the seas, Britain and France surge forward with the Industrial Revolution. Factories belch smoke in Manchester, steam engines rumble along railways in Paris, and ironclad ships dominate the waves. The Ottomans. Their workshops produce exquisite carpets and swords by hand, beautiful but obsolete in a world of machines and mass production. The Sultan's treasuries run chronically dry. For centuries, quick fixes sufficed, debasing the currency by mixing silver with cheaper metals, or confiscating the fortunes of wealthy officials in purges that filled coffers but bred resentment. But in this modern era, such tricks falter. Europe watches with predatory eyes, especially the Russian Empire to the north, ever eager to expand southward toward warm water ports. The Ottomans need capital desperately, to modernize their army with rifled muskets and artillery, to string telegraph lines across vast territories, to build roads that can shuttle troops and goods efficiently. They must appear as a peer to the European powers, not the sick man of Europe, whispered in diplomatic salons. Religious and cultural taboos hold them back. Islam's aversion to usury, riba, castes borrowing as sinful, and politically, dependence on Christian lenders from London or Paris reeks of subjugation. Sultan Abdulmajid resists, clinging to sovereignty. But then, the storm breaks. In July 1853, Russian forces under Tsar Nicholas I cross into Ottoman territories in the Danubian principalities, igniting what will become the Crimean War. The invasion is a thunderclap. Russian infantry in grey greatcoats march through muddy fields, bayonets fixed, while Ottoman garrisons scramble to respond with outdated flintlocks and disorganized levies. You are there on the front lines, perhaps as a wide-eyed Ottoman soldier huddled in a trench near Silistra, the acrid smell of gunpowder mixing with the mud churned by artillery shells. The war escalates rapidly, a massive conflict drawing in global powers. Britain and France, fearing Russian dominance over the Black Sea and the strategic Dardanelles Strait, ally with the Ottomans. British redcoats under Lord Raglan and French Zouaves in colorful uniforms sail to the Crimea, their iron steamships cutting through waves like knives. But alliance comes at a cost. Not just blood, but gold. The war devours resources. Ottoman soldiers, clad in fezzes and woolen tunics, need wages paid in hard currency to prevent desertions. Cannons must be cast in foundries, ships provisioned with powder and shot from arsenals in Istanbul. The treasury hemorrhages millions of gold liras weekly. Abdülmecit's advisors, including the Grand Vizier Mustafa Rashid Pasha, a reformer with a neatly trimmed beard and Western-style frock coat, whisper urgently in council chambers, "There is no choice, Your Majesty. We must borrow." In 1854, the dam bursts. Envoys from British and French banks arrive in Istanbul, their top hats and ledgers symbols of a new conquest. The first foreign loan is signed, a syndicate led by Dent, Palmer and Company from London and the Rothschilds from Paris. It's framed as solidarity, £3 million, equivalent to about 5 million Ottoman liras, to bolster allies against the Russian bear. But the terms are venomous, hidden in fine print. The loan issues at 80% of face value, meaning for every £100 borrowed, the empire receives only £80 in cash. The bankers pocket the rest as commissions and premiums. Yet interest accrues on the full £100 at 6%, making the effective rate punishingly high, around 7.5% or more when fees are factored. Feel the rush as the gold arrives, crates unloaded from British frigates, clinking with coins that flood the treasury. Suddenly, regiments are paid, supplies flow to the front. Ottoman forces, reinforced by British Light Brigade cavalry and French infantry, clash with Russians at battles like Balaclava, where the infamous charge of the Light Brigade unfolds in a valley of death, horses thundering amid exploding shells. The Allies prevail. Russia sues for peace in 1856 at the Treaty of Paris. But victory sows addiction. The Sultan tastes the magic trick of credit. A signature in a London boardroom summons wealth to Istanbul's doorstep. No more scraping for taxes, easy money beckons. Post-war, borrowing continues unchecked. The elite, gazing enviously at Paris's gaslit boulevards and London's marble edifices, crave modernity. They shun investments in factories, irrigation canals, or schools, engines of real growth. Instead, they chase prestige. Enter the ultimate folly, the Dolmabahçe Palace. Abdülmecit deems the ancient Topkapi too Asian, too archaic with its domed pavilions and secretive courtyards. He dreams of a European marvel rivaling Versailles. Construction begins in 1843 but accelerates post-war with borrowed funds. You can envision the site on the Bosphorus. Workers in turbans hauling Italian marble, Bohemian crystal, and French gold leaf under the watchful eyes of Armenian architects Garabet and Nagogos Bulyan. The palace rises, a neoclassical behemoth with 285 rooms, 46 halls, and a facade stretching 600 meters along the water. Inside, opulence defies belief. 14 tons of gold leaf gild ceilings and walls, the world's largest Bohemian crystal chandelier, a gift from Queen Victoria, hangs like a frozen waterfall. Baccarat crystal staircases gleam under chandeliers, silk carpets from Hurrique cushioned footsteps. The cost: 5 million gold liras, a quarter of the empire's annual tax revenue. Peasants in Anatolia starve with wooden plows, yet the Sultan imports luxury on credit. Loans pile up, another in 1855 for £5 million, 1858 for £5 million more, 1860 for £2 million. Bankers in Threadneedle Street and Rue de Rivoli smile, pocketing commissions while assuming geopolitical importance shields their investments. Britain and France won't let the Ottomans fall, lest Russia pounce. Moral hazard thrives. By the 1860s, it's a Ponzi scheme. Tax revenues can't cover interest, new loans pay old ones. Debt service devours 15% of budget in 1860, soaring to 50% by 1870. Half of every fisherman's catch in the Aegean or farmer's wheat in Syria flows abroad to bondholders. The state hollows out, no funds for armies, schools, roads. Desperation turns to Galata bankers, Greek and Armenian financiers in Istanbul's Galata district, offering short-term loans at 18 to 20% interest, like loan sharks propping up a gambler. Sultan Abdulaziz ascends in 1861, a burly man with a massive ego and military fetish. He expands the navy, ordering British ironclads and German Krupp cannons. Briefly, the Ottoman fleet ranks third globally, hulking ships like the Azazai and Osmani, armored behemoths with rifled guns. But they rust in the Golden Horn, unaffordable to fuel or crew. The empire teeters, a glittering shell masking decay. And soon, the cracks will shatter wide open. Autumn 1873. A dusty village square in central Anatolia, near the town of Kayseri. The sun beats down mercilessly on cracked earth. A gaunt peasant woman clutches a dead child to her chest while a tax collector in a threadbare uniform pokes through her empty granary with the butt of his rifle. The air smells of dust and death. Locusts have stripped the fields bare, wells have run dry, and the sheep lie bloated on the hillsides. This is the Great Famine of 1873-74, known in Turkish as the Bayak Kitlik. Hundreds of thousands will starve before spring. And yet, in the distant salons of London and Paris, investors sip tea and clip coupons from Ottoman bonds, blissfully unaware that the goose that lays their golden eggs is already dying. Back in Istanbul, Sultan Abdulaziz stands on the terrace of the half-finished Dolmabahçe Palace, gazing across the Bosphorus as if the glittering water could somehow wash away the red ink drowning his empire. His navy lies at anchor below him, dozens of magnificent ironclads, their black hulls streaked with rust, crews unpaid for months, boilers cold for lack of coal. The fleet that was meant to make Europe tremble has become the most expensive ornament in history. The global financial panic that began in Vienna in May 1873 has finally reached the Ottoman doorstep. European banks, burned by bad investments in American railroads and Austrian speculative schemes, suddenly remember they have lent hundreds of millions to a medieval agrarian empire run by spendthrift sultans. Credit lines snap shut overnight. In the coffeehouses of Galata, the Greek and Armenian money changers who once threw gold at the Grand Vizier now refuse even short-term advances at any price. The music has stopped, and the Ottoman Empire cannot find a chair. By 1875, debt service consumes more than half of all state revenue. The interest payment due in October alone is 8 million gold liras, while the treasury holds barely 800,000. Grand Vizier Mahmud Nedim Pasha, nicknamed Nedimov by his enemies for his pro-Russian leanings, stares at the ledgers in the Sublime Porte and realizes the impossible has arrived. There is simply no money. On the evening of October 6, 1875, the 14th day of Ramadan, the government issues the infamous Ramazan Kararnamesi, the Decree of Ramadan. In careful, diplomatic language it announces that for the next 5 years the empire will pay only half of the coupon due on its foreign debt in cash. The other half will be handed over in 5-year Ottoman government bonds bearing 5% interest. To the bondholders of London, Paris, and Vienna, this is not a restructuring. This is theft. This is default. The reaction in Europe is volcanic. The Times of London thunders that the Turks are swindlers in turbans. In Paris, small investors who bought Ottoman bonds through glittering advertisements, guaranteed by the salt and tobacco monopolies, see their life savings halved overnight. Punch magazine prints a cartoon of Sultan Abdulaziz as a hook-nosed pickpocket rifling the pockets of a distressed John Bull and Mary Ann. Diplomatic support evaporates. Britain and France, who once sent fleets to save the Ottomans from Russia, now openly call them Oriental bankrupts. Nature and geopolitics now conspire to kick a dying man. The famine has destroyed the tax base. And Russia, smelling blood, prepares to strike. In April 1877, Tsar Alexander II declares war. The Russo-Turkish War of 1877–78 is fought with a ferocity the Ottomans have not faced in centuries. Unpaid, ragged Ottoman soldiers in patched greatcoats defend the fortress of Plevna with desperate courage, but they are armed with obsolete Peabody Martini rifles while the Russians have modern Krupp artillery. One by one the Balkan strongholds fall. By January 1878 Russian cavalry patrols canter to within sight of the domes of Istanbul. The city panics, the Sultan prepares to flee to Anatolia. The Treaty of San Stefano in March 1878 is humiliation made parchment. Romania, Serbia, and Montenegro gain independence. Bulgaria becomes a vast Russian satellite stretching almost to the Aegean. Huge swathes of Armenia are ceded, and the final twist of the knife, Russia imposes a war indemnity of 802 million francs, roughly £32 million. The Ottoman Empire now owes more money than its entire economy is worth. It is not merely bankrupt. It is insolvent beyond any historical precedent. Enter the accountants in frock coats. In the autumn of 1881, a delegation arrives in Istanbul that carries no sabers, only briefcases. They are the representatives of the bondholders, chiefly the British Imperial Ottoman Bank, the French Banque Impériale Ottomane, and the great houses of Rothschild, Bleichroeder, and Erlanger. They are led by Sir Edgar Vincent, later Lord D'Abernon, a 24-year-old financial prodigy with an icy stare, and the French diplomat Baron de Courcelles. They do not ask for an audience with the Sultan. They demand the keys to the treasury. After weeks of negotiations inside the smoke-filled rooms of the Sublime Porte, on December 20, 1881 Sultan Abdul Hamid II signs the Decree of Muharrem, the single most consequential surrender of sovereignty in modern history without a shot being fired. With the stroke of a pen, the Ottoman Empire ceases to control its own finances. The decree creates the Ottoman Public Debt Administration, the Dünya Umumi, a foreign corporation answerable not to the Sultan but to the bondholders of Europe. Its headquarters rises like a fortress on Voivode Street in Galata, a massive neo-Renaissance palace of stone with iron gates and armed guards, deliberately built to loom over the city and remind every passerby who truly rules. The OPDA is handed direct control over the empire's richest revenue streams, the monopolies on salt, tobacco, silk, and spirits, the stamp tax, the fisheries tax, the silk tithe and bursa, even the tax on the annual pilgrimage to Mecca. Over 5,000 European and local employees, wearing smart uniforms with the OPDA cipher, fan out across the empire. They are tax collectors who answer to no Ottoman official. If a village headman refuses to hand over the silk tithe, OPDA agents can, and do, call in Ottoman gendarmes to enforce collection. Gendarmes paid, ironically, with the remaining two-thirds of revenue the empire is allowed to keep. You can picture the scene in a tobacco warehouse in Salonika. Greek workers in fezes cure and bale the fragrant leaves while an OPDA inspector in a bowler hat checks every crate. The profit does not go to the Sultan's war chest. It is loaded onto a British steamer bound for London, where it will pay the 4% coupon on the 1858 loan that built a crystal staircase no peasant will ever climb. Between 1881 and 1914, the OPDA will collect roughly one-third of all Ottoman state revenue, and it will do so with ruthless Prussian efficiency. Salt pans are modernized, tax evasion crushed, silkworm eggs distributed to increase yields, all so that the surplus can be shipped abroad. The Ottoman government is left with scraps, enough to pay the palace, the army, and the bureaucracy, but never enough to invest, industrialize, or escape the trap. Sultan Abdul Hamid II, the Red Sultan, the damned despot to his enemies, now reigns from Yildiz Palace under permanent house arrest by his own creditors. He is allowed his throne, his harem, his spies, and his pan-Islamic propaganda, but every major expenditure must be quietly approved by the Debt Council. He is sovereign in name only. The empire has been foreclosed upon while still alive. September 1898. The Kaiser's white yacht Hohenzollern glides up the Bosphorus under a blazing sun, its imperial eagle gleaming in gold at the prow. Kaiser Wilhelm II, in the white uniform and spiked helmet of a German admiral, stands on the bridge beside Sultan Abdul Hamid II. As the guns of the old Ottoman fortress at Anadolu Hisari thunder out a 21-gun salute, Wilhelm leans close and speaks the words the desperate Sultan has waited years to hear. "I am not like the others. I do not come to bleed you. I come to raise you up. Abdulhamid's eyes narrow behind his pince-nez spectacles. He has heard sweet promises before, but this one comes wrapped in steel and ambition. The British and French have turned his empire into a milk cow chained in Galata. The OPDA's tax collectors are everywhere. The army rots, the treasury is a joke, and every year another slice of territory is nibbled away by Balkan rebels or European spheres of influence. Germany, the new power rising in the heart of Europe, offers something the others never did: respect, partnership, and most seductive of all, a way to claw back sovereignty. The bait is the Berlin-Baghdad Railway. Imagine the map rooms in Berlin and Istanbul lit by green-shaded lamps. German engineers in high collars unroll vast charts showing a ribbon of steel stretching from the Bosporus through Anatolia, across the Taurus Mountains, down the Euphrates Valley to Baghdad, and eventually to the Persian Gulf. It will be the greatest engineering project since the Suez Canal. It will carry Ottoman troops to crush rebellions in Arabia in days instead of months. It will open markets for German machinery and Ottoman cotton. And, crucially, it will give Germany direct access to Mesopotamian oil, bypassing the British-controlled sea lanes. The Deutsche Bank, led by the ruthless George von Siemens, is ready to finance it. But the price is steep. Every kilometer of track comes with a kilometric guarantee. The Ottoman government must pay German construction companies a fixed profit per kilometer whether the railway earns a single piaster in ticket sales or not. Worse, the concession grants German firms the right to exploit all minerals, oil, and antiquities within 20 kilometers on either side of the tracks. In one stroke, the richest oil fields of Mosul and Kirkuk are quietly mortgaged to Berlin before a single barrel has been pumped. Abdul Hamid signs anyway. Construction begins in 1903. You can almost feel the ground shake as German locomotives, marked with the black-white-red flag, are unloaded at Haydarpasa station. German officers in Pickelhaube helmets drill Ottoman troops. Krupp salesmen parade the latest field guns across the hippodrome. German archaeologists dig at Babylon while quietly mapping military routes. By 1910, the Ottoman army is commanded by a German general, Lyman von Sanders. The Baghdad Railway is half-built, and the empire has swapped the golden handcuffs of Britain and France for the iron shackles of the Kaiser. In London and Paris, alarm bells ring. The railway is no longer just a commercial, it is a strategic dagger aimed at India and Egypt. British newspapers speak of the German peril in the East. French diplomats mutter about revanche for 1870 now being fought in the deserts of Mesopotamia. The debt trap has become a great power chessboard. By 1913, the Young Turks, officers radicalized by decades of humiliation, have seized power in a coup. Enver Pasha, the handsome, ruthless war minister, and Tulat Pasha, the cold-eyed organizer, stare at the same ledgers that destroyed the sultans and reach a brutal conclusion. The only way to escape the OPDA and the kilometric guarantees is to burn the entire board. If Germany wins a European war, the debts to Britain and France can be repudiated. The OPDA can be dissolved. The railway can become truly Ottoman. It is the gamble of a drowning man clutching at a sword. November 1st, 1914. Istanbul. A cold rain lashes the Galata district. Crowds of angry young Turk officers and medical students march through the streets chanting, "Death to the foreign parasites." At dawn the next day, Ottoman Marines storm the OPDA headquarters on Voivode Street. British and French directors are dragged from their offices in dressing gowns, bundled onto a steamer to Odessa. Filing cabinets are smashed open, ledgers burned in bonfires that light the night sky. For one intoxicating moment, the empire tastes freedom. 3 days later, British dreadnoughts in the Dardanelles open fire. The Ottoman Empire is at war with the Entente. Enver dreams of pan-Turanian empires stretching to Central Asia. German generals promise victory by Christmas. Instead comes Gallipoli, Kut, the Arab Revolt, and 4 years of slaughter. When the guns finally fall silent in November 1918, the empire is gone. Istanbul is occupied by British, French, and Italian troops. Greek soldiers strut through Smyrna. The Sultan cowers in Yildiz Palace, a prisoner in his own capital. Yet the debt survives. Lausanne, Switzerland. In a smoke-filled hotel on Lake Geneva, İsmet İnönü, the stone-faced general representing the new Turkish Republic born from the ashes of Gallipoli and the War of Independence, sits across from British and French diplomats who open their briefcases and calmly lay out the old Ottoman ledgers. "You have inherited the territory," they say. "You inherit the mortgage." Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, waiting in Ankara, knows Turkey cannot begin life as an international pariah. After months of brutal negotiation, Turkey agrees to assume a portion of the Ottoman debt, restructured, reduced, but still crushing. The first payment leaves Ankara in 1929. The last check is signed on May 25, 1954, exactly 100 years after that first fatal loan of 1854. The sick man of Europe did not die in battle. He was foreclosed upon by compound interest, parceled out by accountants, and finally buried by the very money he thought would make him strong. And the lesson, carved in the red marble of history, is simple. You do not need armies to conquer a nation. Give it credit. Wait. Then collect. Ankara, 10:42 a.m., May 25, 1954. A quiet government office on Ataturk Boulevard, 3rd floor, room 317. Sunlight cuts through the Venetian blinds and falls across a plain wooden desk where a mid-level treasury official named Nuri Bey adjusts his glasses, uncaps a fountain pen, and signs the final line of a document that has been traveling through history for exactly 100 years. The check is modest, $3,004,608.27. It is drawn on the Central Bank of the Republic of Turkey and made payable to the last surviving trustee of the Ottoman Public Debt Administration, a white-haired French notary who has flown in from Paris just for this moment. When the ink dries, Nuri Bey leans back in his chair and exhales as if the entire weight of the Dolmabahçe chandeliers, the rusting ironclads, the kilometric guarantees, and the blood-soaked trenches of Gallipoli has just rolled off his shoulders and out of the Republic's books forever. No cameras record the scene. No band plays. Only the soft clack of a typewriter in the next room and the distant hum of Ankara's new trams. The last Ottoman debt coupon has been redeemed itself. Outside, modern Turkey is already a different country. The wooden plows of 1854 have been replaced by American tractors. The salt monopoly is a memory. The tobacco warehouses of Samsun now ship cigarettes under the proud red flag with the white crescent, not the cipher of the OPDA. A new generation of students at Istanbul University studies engineering instead of theology, and the Baghdad Railway, finished at last by Turkish hands, carries diesel locomotives instead of German dreams. Yet the ghost of the debt trap still walks the world. Every time a developing nation signs an IMF structural adjustment program, every time a resource-rich country mortgages its future oil revenues for a quick loan, every time a leader builds a marble palace or a prestige airline while schools stay dark, the accountants of London, Paris, Washington, or Beijing smile quietly, because they have read this ledger before. They know the ending. The Ottoman Empire was not destroyed by Russian artillery or British dreadnoughts. It was dismantled, bond by bond, coupon by coupon, by men in frock coats who never set foot on a battlefield. They proved that the most devastating invasion in history requires no landing craft, only a favorable interest rate and a long enough time horizon. In the end, the sick man of Europe did not die of fever or sword. He was quietly, politely, relentlessly foreclosed upon. And when the last payment cleared on that spring morning in 1954, the Republic closed the file, locked the drawer, and walked out into the sunlight, free at last of a mortgage signed before any living citizen had been born. The lesson was paid in full. Sovereignty is not the flag you fly. It is the balance sheet you control. If you do not own your debt owns you. I'm John, and this has been the true story of how Britain and Europe bought the Middle East without ever firing a shot in anger, only in interest. If this cautionary tale from the ashes of a once great empire moved you, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and share it with someone who still believes loans are just money. Because history is written in blood. But empires are often erased in red ink. That was the story of the first great modern debt trap, how an empire that once made Europe tremble was brought to its knees not by cannon fire, but by the quiet tyranny of interest. 100 years. 14 tons of gold leaf. millions of lives. All reduced to a single line in a ledger that finally closed on a spring morning in Ankara. If this story shook you, do 3 things. Hit the like button. Let the algorithm know the truth still matters. Subscribe and ring the bell, because the next empire on the table might be closer than you think. Drop a comment. Which modern country do you see walking the same path today? Thank you for watching.